Thank you, Chris. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to congratulate our Hungarian friends for setting up this marvelous conference. I think you are touching upon a very, very important issues, and it's a great honor for me to be here. So thank you for inviting me. I think my little contribution here fits very well into that what Bernd Langeheine started to explain on the European level, because I will break that down to the floor of the daily regulatory work, and I will going to present to you the Austrian case as an example how NRAs, how national regulators can contribute to the swift rollout of high-speed infrastructure. The process of, I will share with you how we have done it in Austria. So the process of market definition and market analysis is a basis for the regulation. We started with the physical network infrastructure, the access to this physical network infrastructure in December 2008 with a market definition. We went over to starting of the market analysis procedure and had in spring and summer the public consultation and the European coordination. Ending in September 2010 with a landmark decision. It was the decision of the regulatory authority explaining a general framework for the broadband expansion to secure investment conditions for investors, operators, and for access seekers. The regulator required the incumbent operator in Austria to maintain transparency and allow access to its infrastructure. And we have also provided governing protection against electromagnetic interference between the lines in the copper cable. And we had also to do something for the protection of alternative operators' investment. The conclusion, not surprisingly, about the Austrian market analysis was that the copper access of the incumbent operator is still a bottleneck facility. There is close to 100% of the copper access lines under the incumbent's hand, no sufficient restricting power on the demand side, and we ended up in saying that A1 Telekom Austria has significant market power. But there are also, on top of this, derived disadvantages for alternative operators, as there are lack of information and lack of economies of scale. We have found that not only copper-related remedies would be insufficient for NGA deployment, and also additional NGA remedies will be necessary. So the copper-related remedies are insufficient for NGA deployment. Why is this the case? If you look at the classical case, and this picture shows you the classical case, so from the main distribution frame you have the copper line to the cabinet, and from the cabinet the copper line to the end user. So both sub-loop unbundling and full-line copper unbundling is possible. In the collocation room, we have the equipment from the alternative operators, and these needs compensation if the main distribution frame is closed down in the process of the NGA rollout. So cost orientation, non-discrimination, and separated accounts are possible prerequisites for good regulation. Additional NGA remedies are necessary to foster competition when it comes that fiber is rolled out closer to the end customer, meaning that fiber is going from the optical line termination to the cabinet, the DSLAM houses the cabinet, and from there the copper to the end customer, or fiber to the basement case where the fiber is going right into the building. So we have 3 deployment scenarios. Yesterday, copper only with ADSL2 Plus and VDSL2 from the central office. We have today copper and fiber, a mixture of copper and fiber where copper still is the bottleneck, with fiber to the cabinet offering up to 40 megabit per second and fiber to the building up to 80 megabit per second typically. And tomorrow maybe fiber only, meaning that it is a scalable speed available for everybody, for offering at least 100 megabit per second symmetrically or gigabit as well. So what are the aims of the additional NGA remedies? And I think this also fits into the presentation what Bernd Langeheine explained. We have to find a compromise, we have to find a balance, the right balance between making investments more attractive, and on the other hand, keeping competition alive and fostering competition. And this balance, this fine line between those extremes, is a very important task for the NRAs. So we have found 4 key elements to make that happen and to operationalize the NGA recommendation. The first is to promote alternative operators' investments in VDSL from central office. Although VDSL from the central office is not a glass fiber-based technology, it's the first step towards a glass fiber or partly glass fiber topology. So VDSL from central office has allowed nationwide as a first step, and compensation for frustrated investments both from modems and DSLAMs of alternative operators in case of a subsequent FTTC or FTTP rollout from the incumbent was a very important point. Second, allow investments from the incumbent in the FTTC and B, meaning mainly that there is no obligatory PSD shaping under specific conditions. These are transparency about the planned NGA deployment, running coordination meetings between the incumbent and the access seekers to make this transparency happen, compensation payment for frustrated investments in modems and DSLAMs, and a cost-free migration in case it would not work otherwise via virtual unbundling. The priority chain is fiber to the home is better than fiber to the building, which is better than fiber to the curb, and which is better, of course, VDSL from the central office. A very important point is to allow a risk premium for new infrastructure, and that risk premium is the lever between distribute making happen that there is a distribution of the investment risk between the investor on the one hand and the access seeker on the other hand. We have more of these elements. The third of these 4 key elements is to promote alternative operators' investments in FTTB and FTTC. For them, in parallel, no obligatory spectrum shaping under the same conditions as for the incumbent, more comprehensive data delivery for the planning, meaning more transparency for all players involved, and the incumbent has to negotiate on the requested installations and new cabinets. The access to ducts for the backhauling is a very important part because, as we have heard, 80% of all the NGA cost is related to civil works, so access to ducts is a very, very critical one. So it needs to have attractive access conditions, better than the general rule provided by the Telecoms Act. It has to be a nationwide offer, not only in the NGA areas, and fees are similar to the general rule according to the Telecoms Act. We look at the access of dark fiber as important, but we see that in the second row, meaning it's the same rule like dark access, but only available in case of ducts are not available fully from A to B, or the case would not be economically feasible. Finally, the first of these key elements is keeping alternative operators competitive. And for us, the key element for making that happen is providing a new wholesale product, which we call virtual unbundling. So in addition to the traditional elements on the unbundling market, this new product should help that the alternative operators will stay competitive also in the future. It should be a substitute wholesale product for the physical unbundling in case physical unbundling is not possible anymore. It should introduce an active product for layer 2 bitstream on a passive market infrastructure. And this needs to introduce a new remedy, which we call VULL or WULA. So let's have a closer look to the virtual unbundling. We have 8 different cornerstones, and this differentiates very significantly from the bitstream product. The possibility for a high grade of innovation comparable with passive access. It should also offer the highest possible transparency for higher layers. A possibility for multicast services should be technology neutral. Flexibility for choosing the CPE, so the access seeker can choose a CPE according to a whitelist, which will be agreed beforehand. It should also possibility have to service handover at the main distribution frame or a similar point of presence within the NGA network. Should also provide third-party service handover configuration access for all relevant connection parameters with non-overbooked bandwidth between the customer and the point of interconnect, and finally it should be offered in NGA areas only. So this is a systematic picture how it looked like. So you have different bandwidth classes from the DSLAM provided to the CPEs. You have high priority and low priority bandwidth connection to the point of interconnect. So I would like to make a reference to the NGA recommendation. So the European Commission's recommendation on NGA, as has been explained, is addressing the challenge of managing competing and sometimes conflicting drivers in the implementation of broadband. It should secure investment in infrastructure and roll out past and future investments in active and passive infrastructure, both from incumbents and alternative operators. It should promote the competition both at the infrastructure and service layers. Promoting competition should be both on infrastructure and service, edge possibility conflicting. Relaxing regulation where there are sufficient levels of competition. So if there is enough infrastructure-based competition, we can relax the regulation, and it should finally designing a framework for the gradual transition from copper to fiber. Ladies and gentlemen, finally I have here a picture which shows the whole European dimension. This is mainly a table which shows the notifications made by all the NRAs in the different areas. I will not read that through, but this is something which you will find in the documentation later on to read afterwards. So thank you very much, and I hope there is some time left if needed.
Okay, thank you. That was, I think, the most comprehensive and concise explanation of virtual unbundling that I've ever seen. It was 13 minutes to get that across. Could I ask a question, because we may not have microphones in the room at the moment, so I just want to ask you about one specific thing. You talk about non-overbooked bandwidth between the customer and the point of interconnection, which is obviously very important. It might be worth just expanding a little bit on that for the benefit of people in the audience.
We think that it is extremely important for the access seeker to get the possibility, at least some of the profiles which will be provided over this product, to get overbooked bandwidth available. Otherwise, it would be a pure, I would say, kind of bitstream product, which is, or let it phrase this way, a pure end customer product. Which for private customers would not be sufficient in our view as a wholesale product to provide high demanding customers as well. So that's the reason why we think that this virtual unbundling product is so important to keep the competition alive in a glass fiber scenario.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Maybe one little addition. We had many discussions whether physical unbundling will be available also in the glass fiber scenario. This, in my view, depends also on the kind of topology the investor has chosen. And for instance, in the GPON scenario, it is very difficult, in my view, to unbundle the physical fiber. I mean, there is some possibilities with spectrum unbundling, but these things are not sufficiently specified yet. So for the time being, we think that the virtual unbundling is the best way to make a competition on higher service levels possible.
Okay, thank you. Okay, well, I think what we'll do is take benefit from the time that we've saved, and we'll have a little more time for question and answer at the end of the panel. I think you've certainly provoked a lot of thoughts that I think the other panelists will pick up on. So, Georg, thank you once again.
Thank you.